Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Getting Started with Squarespace webinar. My name is Parker, and I work on the customer operations team here at Squarespace. Today, we're going to be going over some Squarespace basics and how to build and style a page with Squarespace. Before we get into it, I did want to take a moment to tell you what we're passionate about here. Our goal is to help people with creative ideas stand out and succeed online. And to help you do that, we offer quite a few tools ranging from websites and domains, of course, to e commerce, email campaigns, and scheduling tools, all of which enable you to build your brands, share your stories, and transact with your customers in a meaningful and beautiful way. Whether you're brand new to Squarespace or you're a seasoned pro, you're going to leave the webinar today with an understanding of the tools and techniques that are available to you so that you can feel confident building and customizing your site to fit your style and your goals. And as a special thank you for joining us today, we've set up the discount code Get Started 10 rather for you to use. You can enter that code at checkout to take 10% off your first purchase, whether that is a domain name or an annual website subscription. Today, we're going to be covering the following topics. First, we're going to be creating an account and starting a trial. Then, we're going to be building a homepage. And we're going to finish off by adjusting colors, fonts, and styles settings. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A window so that we can help you out. And I know it's tempting to follow along with your site opened, but we do recommend closing them and focusing your attention on our demo today. You can rewatch the webinar whenever you would like by using the same link. And this link is also going to be sent to you via email. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to take a look at the site we're going to be recreating today. Today, I'm going to be switching between two tabs. The first tab is my finished site, which we're going to use as a reference. This site is for Lolasana, which is a health and wellness business that offers yoga, nutrition, and meditation work. The second tab is where I have squarespace.com opened, and this is where we'll be creating the trial site that we will be working on today. I've also created a folder on my desktop that contains all of the photos and text I'll be adding to my site. This is definitely a pro tip, and I would highly recommend doing the same thing on your end because it is a real time saver. Now, to get started on Squarespace, I of course visit squarespace.com and I'm going to click on the Get Started button in the top right corner of the screen. This brings up a questionnaire to learn a bit more about my intentions for creating a new site and to offer some suggestions. It is optional, so I'm going to click on I'm just browsing in the top right corner to look at some templates. Something to note is that all 7.1 template layouts have the same underlying features and style capabilities. So any layout that you choose will give you the same customization uh, uh, um, options. You can really think of these layouts as starting points rather than fixed templates. I'm going to start with the Hester layout today. And to create my trial, I'm going to click on Start with Hester. That brings up an account dialog where I can either create a new account or sign into an existing one. Your Squarespace account is where your website lives, and we identify your account by your email address. You can have multiple sites registered under the same account, meaning multiple websites registered under the same email address. Because of that, we do recommend using the same email address or social media login when creating all of your sites. That way, they're all under the same account and you can toggle between them, which I'll show you how to do in just a little bit. If you have never used Squarespace before, you'll create an account by clicking continue with email to enter your email address and set a password, or you can choose to use one of these social login options here, and you can click on more options to reveal that option to use Facebook. If you already do have an account, you'll click on log in the top right corner to enter your credentials. I, of course, do already have an account, so I'm just going to quickly copy and paste my login credentials here so that we can get our site created. There we go. And as our trial site is being created, let's chat a bit more about them. Every trial site that you make is active for 14 days and gives you access to all of Squarespace's features and functionality. You won't need to provide payment information to start a trial. They are completely payment and commitment free. If you do end up needing some more trial time, you can reach out to our customer support team. And when you're ready to upgrade to a paid plan, all of the work you've done on your trial will remain on your site, so you don't have to start from scratch. So now let's take a look at this site I just created. Whenever I create a site, I'm greeted by this welcome card, which prompts me to enter a site title. The site title is the name of your site, and it can really be whatever you want it to be. It can be your name, your business, your blog, your personal brand. The title usually appears in your site header or the top corner of your pages. If you want to replace the title with the logo, you can do that later on, but you are still going to want to add that text title because it'll help you out with search engine optimization or SEO. We're not going to be diving into SEO today, but we do have another webinar about it that you can check out. That is called SEO with your Squarespace site. I'm going to make my site title Lolasana and I'll click continue. Next up, I just have some informational cards showing me how to edit, create, and style pages. I don't need these, so I'm going to use the next arrow in the bottom right corner to navigate through those, and then I'll click on Get Started to enter my site. Now that I'm in my site, on the right side, I see this assistant dialog to help me get started. I don't need this, so I'm going to click on the X in the lower right corner to dismiss that. Now, before anything else, let's familiarize ourselves with the platform. When you log into your Squarespace site, you're going to see a screen similar to this. On the left-hand side, I have my home menu. This is where all the site content and management tools live. To the right of the menu is the page preview. Clicking on edit in the top left will allow us to edit our pages. And in the top right-hand corner of the site, I have the expand arrow. Clicking on the expand arrow expands the site content so that you can preview how it would look to a visitor without having to log out and log back in again. Clicking that again brings us back to our home menu screen. The Asset Library panel of the home menu is where you can get quick access to all assets like files and photos that you've added to your site. You can add new assets directly here, and you can also delete them and manage existing assets as well from this panel. The last panel I have in the home menu is Help. At the bottom, I can see which version of Squarespace I am using. I am using Squarespace version 7.1. And above that, you'll also see I have direct links to several help resources to use while I'm building my site. For example, there's a direct link to our webinars page. We can browse through the other webinar subjects that we have. Finally, at the bottom of the home menu is the account avatar. Clicking on this opens up our account dashboard, which is a hub that displays all of the sites on my account. From there, I can switch between sites. I can also change the view of the dashboard with these icons at the top. The detailed view shows bigger preview photos and my active subscriptions for each site. The list view gives me a more condensed view, and I can also use the search bar to the right to quickly search for a site, which is useful for accounts like mine that have quite a few sites. In the account settings in the top right corner, I can update some profile information on my account. I can choose my account language. Squarespace is currently available in these languages that you see listed here, or I can log out of Squarespace completely. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to click the back arrow a few times to get back to my trial site. And now we're going to take a look at domains. Looking in the address bar of my browser, you'll see that the URL of my site is eagle-eagle-2fma.squarespace.com. That's called a built-in domain, and it's also known as a Squarespace URL because it contains .squarespace.com. All sites are automatically assigned a built-in domain once they're created. And all of them begin with a unique identifier that's made up of two randomly generated words. I can customize that bit of it so that it doesn't sound so random, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. I can also use a custom domain if I wanted to. In this case, I may want to use lolasana.net. But even if I add a custom domain, I am always going to see the built-in domain when I'm logged into my site like this for security purposes. So now let's click on Settings and then Domains to open up our Domains panel and talk some more. If you don't yet own a custom domain, you can register one directly on your Squarespace site. Keep in mind, this is a separate subscription from your site, and registering a domain with Squarespace would make us your domain host in addition to your website host. If you already own a custom domain through another provider, you have two options. The first would be to transfer your domain to Squarespace, which would make Squarespace your domain host, and you'll be able to manage charges for both of your subscriptions through your site. The second option is to keep the domain with your current provider and point it to your Squarespace site by updating a few of the domain settings. We have a guide that walks you through connecting a third party domain at support.squarespace.com. And with that option, Squarespace is your website host, but the provider you purchased your domain from is still your domain host. And the last option in this panel is to change the built in domain's unique identifier, which I mentioned earlier. Now let's go back and jump into our Google Workspace panel. Once my site has a custom domain, I can register a custom email address for it through our partnership with Google Workspace, which was previously called G Suite. That'll let me create an email address like parker@lolasana.net as opposed to using something like parker@gmail.com. A custom email address can lend another layer of professionalism and credibility to your brand, and it also allows you to keep your business and personal email addresses separate from one another. That's all we're going to be covering on domains in Google Workspace today, but you can check out those categories of our help site, or you can reach out to our customer support team if you wanted to learn some more on that. So now that we're even more familiar with the platform, let's dive deeper into creating our homepage to showcase Lolasana and what it has to offer. We're going to create this page in our Pages panel, which is the content control center for the site. Here, I can create new pages, I can update my content on existing pages, and I can rearrange the order of my navigation links. You'll see that the Pages panel is broken up into two sections. Every page that I add or move into the main navigation section will appear in my navigation bar. Every page that I add or move into the not linked section will be publicly available on my site, but they won't appear in my navigation. These pages do appear in search engine results, and they can be seen by visiting the page URL or by clicking on a button or link to them that I add elsewhere on my site. And I'll give you two examples of what you may want to use that for. The first would be keeping your homepage here. Your site title or logo is always going to direct to your homepage, so you may not want to include a navigation link for it. The second would be to include pages about temporary promotions or campaigns that you may prefer to keep out of your main navigation. And for those of you who are looking to create members only pages, we offer a feature called Member Areas. With this, users need to sign up and become a member to access that area of your site. With member areas, you can sell access to content like classes and seminars, run a members only blog, or offer community space with unique products. If I wanted to, I would enable member areas in the settings panel of the home menu. Doing that would add a third section to my pages panel where I would create and manage my content for that. We have listed the member areas guides in the resources page, and you can find that in the resources window on your screen. If you've closed that, just click the paperclip icon at the bottom of your dock, and that'll come right back up for you. All of the pages that I have here are demo pages, and you can see that by the demo tag to the right of the page title. All trial sites will include demo pages, and they're really just guides to help you get started. We recommend removing or replacing all demo content before you upgrade to a paid plan. Since I want to start fresh, I'm going to move the demo pages into the not linked section of my site by clicking and dragging them down. This is just my preferred workflow whenever I create a site. I prefer to start fresh and build all new pages, but you can certainly start designing from a demo page if you'd like. To do that, you would just click on the page that you want to work on, click on edit in the top left corner, and then the page is yours to change and edit as you'd like. And then I'll click done, and you can see the demo flag has been removed since I've started to make changes to that page. Now let's have a closer look at what we're going to be recreating today. This is the homepage for Lolasana, and I've used this page as a brief introduction to the business, but you can design your homepage however would work best for you. First, let's look at what's going on in the header. I have a site logo with the tagline at the top, and in the first section, I have a photo background with a text heading and a call to action button. In the second section, I have another text heading, a row of three photos, and a paragraph of introductory text. For the third section, I've added this cool special layout to showcase testimonials in a slideshow, and we have some background art there. For the fourth section, I have another text heading with another row of photos. And finally, for the fifth section, I have a scrolling block to share some news. Now, that's what we have on the agenda today. So let's get started and hop back into our trial site. To add a new page to my site, I'm going to click on the plus icon at the top of the Pages panel, and that opens up the page menu, which outlines the available page types. The blank and layout options are ideal to create versatile mixed media pages, while the collection pages below are used to display a collection of items, like blog posts, products, or events. For example, a blog page displays a collection of blog posts. You'll also notice that each page has its own icon to the left of the page title to give you a quick way to identify the types of pages that you are using on your site. I am going to use a blank page, but I do want to show you some of the page layouts that we have available. Page layouts are pre-designed with some placeholder content, and they can be a really great source of initial inspiration, even if you don't end up using the layout itself. And you'll see that they're organized by category. With about layouts, you can share information about yourself or your business. With team layouts, you can share information about the people in your organization. With review layouts, you can showcase customer feedback or testimonials. And with gallery layouts, you can display a set of photos in a striking layout quickly and easily. And the best news is that all of these layouts are further customizable, so you can really make them your own. Let's go ahead and choose the blank option at the top, and I will name this page Welcome and click Enter on my keyboard. Jump right in and click Edit in the top left corner. And we are going to start with our site header and work our way down. So to do that, I'm going to click on Edit Site Header. And that opens up a settings menu, and I'll click on Site Title and Logo to start out. This field here is where you can add or change your site title. As I mentioned before, having a site title is crucial even if you are using a logo, because search engines are only going to see the text title when crawling your site to list it in search results. Below that is the upload field where I can upload a site logo. I can either do that by dragging and dropping it into the upload field, or I can select the plus icon to browse through the files on my computer. There isn't a field to include a tagline, so I did create the logo in another platform to include my business motto, and I'm just going to drag and drop that from the folder that I have created with all of my photos and text. While that's uploading, I'll let you know that Squarespace supports JPEG, PNG, and GIF files, and we recommend a file size of 500 kilobytes and an image width between 1500 and 2500 pixels. That ensures your photos will display well and load quickly on all of our supported browsers. Now that's added, I'm going to increase the height to 207 pixels to make that larger and more noticeable. And that looks good. I'm going to go back now and I'm going to click into style to make sure the style of my header is set to dynamic so that it appears transparent over the background photo we're going to be adding later on. There are other styling options for you, like solid, gradient, or a color theme. Depending on which one you choose, you'll see some other styling options like borders, opacity, blurred backgrounds, and drop shadow effects. You can find detailed information about those options in the Building a Site Header Guide, which is linked on the resources page. Now let's click outside of the headings menu to close it because it looks good. Now, before we start adding content to a page, let me provide some context on how this will work on Squarespace. Site pages and footers are made with customizable sections that are stacked vertically on top of one another. And you can add, delete, and move sections around to arrange your content. We're going to be working with sections a lot today, so you're going to get to see all of that. To add a section, I'll click the blue Add Section button in the center of the page, and I'm going to add a blank section. All sections on new trial sites are automatically going to use Fluid Engine, which is our newest site editor. And you can tell the section is using Fluid Engine because while I am editing my site, I see that I have the Add Block button in the top left corner. This new editor offers really intuitive tools that'll let you control every design detail on your site. Some of the exciting design features include the ability to create layers, resize photos dynamically, move multiple blocks at the same time, and generally just more freedom with how you can align content on your page. If your site is not a new trial and it's still using the classic editor, clicking on Add Section will open up a menu on the right side of your screen, and you'll see a button that says Convert. Clicking on that will let you use Fluid Engine for that section. Keep in mind that option is only available for sites that are built on Squarespace 7.1. As a reminder, you can navigate to the Help panel in the Home menu to check which version your site is using if you need. If you are on another version besides 7.1, we have linked some guides in the resources page with more information about moving to 7.1. So now let's jump into editing our section by customizing the grid. The section grid is like a canvas where we add our content. So we're going to make sure that we like the layout of it. To edit the grid, I'm going to click on to the edit section button in the top right corner of the screen. And the first option we see here is row count. I can use this to change the number of rows my grid has. The more I add, the taller my section will be. I can add up to 100 rows, but I'm going to stick to 10 since I don't need too much room in this one here. The second option we have is gap spacing, which changes the space between the rows and the columns of the grid. And the third option we have is to adjust the alignment and height of the section. Now I'm going to click out of the menu here, and you'll see that the grid disappears. If you choose to edit with the grid being visible, you can do so by clicking G on your keyboard, and that'll pop right back up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add our background photo, and to do that, I'll click on Edit section, and then on the Background tab. You can either add a photo, a 1 minute long video, or use pre-made art as your background. I'm going to use a photo, so I'll drag and drop it from the folder I have on my desktop. We recommend that the photos you use for banner or background images are abstract like this instead of text or item focused because of cropping. Squarespace uses a styling method called responsive design, which will change the size or position of certain things on your site to accommodate different screen sizes. Banner and background photos in particular will often see cropping on mobile due to that. So if you are using an image that's item or text focused, that cropping may be more apparent. Now that that is uploaded in this menu here in the image effect menu, you can apply an animation like static, water, or film. And when I apply that, I can click on the sections, the settings slider icon here to adjust the shape and size, motion, and the texture of the animation as well. I'm not going to add an animation, so I'm going to go back and click on none. And I'm going to click out of the menu now because that looks good. And now we're going to get started and add some content to this section. I'm going to do that by clicking on Add Block. And the first thing I'm going to do is add a text block. To add it, I'll just click on it. And now what I'll do is I will resize the text block because I want it to be a little bit larger. So I'll click and drag the corner handle, and I'll drag this to the middle of the grid, and I'll give this a height of 4 rows. And I'll also drag this 1 row down into this section. That way I have 3 rows above it. So now I'll add my welcome message here. Oop, we'll skip that. We'll talk about text highlights in a moment, which is this season's class offerings. Now I want this text to pop. So I'm going to click into the text formatting bar, and I'm going to choose heading 2 text. That way it's larger and it's more noticeable on my site. And I'm also going to change the color. So I'll click on my text and highlight all of it. I'll click on the color picker and I'll choose white from my site's palette. And we're going to go over styling colors and fonts a lot more later on. Now, a feature I do want to highlight is the scale text icon right over here. Depending on the size of screen my site is being viewed on, my text may appear differently, especially on mobile. If I want the text to be on one line across all devices, I can click on the scale icon so that my text will resize to fit on one line regardless of the size of the screen it's being viewed on. That way I can create a really consistent visual experience. That's not super important to me for this heading, so I'm not going to enable that, but I just wanted to let you know that that is something that you can do. So now I'm going to click on Add Block again, and this time I'm going to add a button block by clicking that, and I will drag this below the text block right over here, and I'll place it over the text block so that I can align the text and the button to the margin of my grid. That's a really cool feature of Fluid Engine called layering. By layering blocks on top of one another, you can create depth, resize or align blocks seamlessly. It gives you the chance to really customize your page. Clicking on the pencil icon at the button block, I can change the text it displays. Learn more is fine for me, but I am going to capitalize the M. And then I can also add a URL where I'd like the button to link. And if I click on the gear icon, I can choose some additional options like linking to another page on my site. But that looks great. So we're going to move right along and click on the Add Section button at the bottom to add a new section to my page. And I'll also add a blank section here as well. Now, the first thing I'll do is click G on my keyboard to show the grid like we did before. And now we're going to customize this by clicking on Edit Section. This time I'm going to go for a row count of 20 because I need a little bit more room here. And I'm going to set the gap spacing to the minimum one, but I can also customize that by using the dot 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 icon to the right. And I'll also change the height of this section here. I have three presets, small, medium, and large, and I can also set a custom height by clicking on the dot 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 icon. Once I do that, it's set to 1, which is the minimum height, and means there are no margins at the top and bottom of this section. I'm going to click and drag the slider up to 35 because I do want some uh, padding there. Now to add the first block for this section, I'm actually going to copy and paste the text block from my first section, which I can do by highlighting it, clicking Command C on my keyboard, scrolling down here, and clicking Command V. If you're on a PC, instead of Command, it will be Control. Now you can copy and paste different blocks between different Fluid Engine sections on your site. So if you created a section that you like and you wanted to copy a block on that, you can do that to speed up the editing process. Now I am going to use some promotional text that's reflective of my brand. So I'm going to type in quiet your mind into your body. And I know you can't see this right now because it is white. So let me highlight this and change the color to black. Highlight your body, highlight your body. There we go. And I'm going to drag this to the center of the grid. Once I'm hovering over the center, you see that vertical orange line up here. That means that the block is centered on the grid. And I'm going to make this larger by dragging each side of it. So I have 3 columns on each side. And next, I'm going to center the text within the block itself by highlighting it and clicking on the alignment icon and then centering. Now, I want to highlight the words quiet and listen here. So I'll do that by highlighting the word using a text highlight. To do that, I'll highlight the word and I'll click on the text highlight option here. I'm going to stick with the classic underline, but there are 11 other highlight styles for you to choose from. And I will just do the same thing for this word. Now, I'm also going to add a background color to this block. So I will click outside, click on the text block, and then the pencil icon, and I'll toggle the background option on. Now, this just added a random color from my sites palette. I think I like this, but I'm not sure, so we'll experiment with some additional colors later on once we go over site styles. And you'll see that that background color did add some additional padding to my block. I don't want that, so I'm going to go to the padding tweak here, click on the dot 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 icon, and I'll drag both of these sliders all the way to the right to get rid of that. Now below that, we're going to add our row of photos. I have 2 options when adding photos to my site. I can either add a single photo with an image block, or I can add multiple at once with a gallery section. I'm going to use 3 image blocks and show you how they can be arranged to make a row. So like we've been doing, I'm going to click on Add Block and then click on Image to drop an image block onto my grid. And I will drag this down so that it's three, oops, there we go. So that I have 4 rows between the text heading and the row of of photos here. And then I will click on the plus icon in the middle to upload a photo. I can either upload a photo directly from my computer, I can select from my site's library, I can browse through stock photos, or I can even upload from mobile. I am going to upload my image from my folder, so I'll click on Upload File, and this is the image I want to upload. Okay, so now that that is uploaded, I am going to resize the image block here. So I'm going to move this one column into the grid, and I'll resize it so it has a width of 6 columns and a height of 7 rows. So it looks like it already has the width of 6 columns, and I'll just drag this down. So now we'll hover over the block, and I'll click on the pencil icon to open up the block settings. In the Content tab, I have some additional options like setting a click-through URL. This will turn the image into a clickable link. In the Design tab, I can choose whether I want the image to fit or fill the block. And we'll talk about that in more detail later on, but I am going to set this to fill so that the image takes up the entire block. Oops, sorry, I didn't click on the design, but I have the option to fit or fill, and I'm going to click on fill. Over here in the corner radius, I can round out the corners by entering a value here. And I can even select which corner I want to round by clicking on this other square icon and choosing which corner I want to round out. And I'll show you what that would look like. Another thing you'll see here is the option to impose a shape over the photo. You can add a shape like a star, a circle to add like a fun design to it. For now, I'm going to keep the image block in the regular square fill shape, but I encourage you to have fun experimenting with those design tweaks. Now, I'm going to add my last 2 image blocks here to finish up the row. I can either click the Add Block button, or I can duplicate the existing image block by clicking on the Duplicate icon right over here. I'm going to do that since I already resized the image block to a size that I like. That just saves me some more time when I'm adding these. And I'll add a space of 2 columns in between each one. And this is the thing I love about the grid. Even though I have freedom to add my image wherever I'd like, the grid gives me some guidance on where I'm placing things. So of course, I'm going to replace these photos. I can do that by clicking on the pencil icon and clicking Replace under the photo. And I'll just choose the ones that I want to use here. There we go. And I'll do that for this last one right over here. So again, replace, upload file, and this is the one they want to go for. So the last thing I'll do, not the last thing within the section, but the last thing I'll do for the rows is add text blocks below the images so that I can add captions. To do that, I'm going to click on Add Block. I'll add a text block, and I will drag this. Oop, there we go. And I will drag this right below the image here and type out my captions. So this one is going to be yoga, and I will make the text bold and center it. And I'll also drag this up once because I don't need that much height. And just like I did with my row of photos, I'm going to duplicate this block for each one just to speed up the editing process. And of course, I'll just type in what the captions are supposed to be here. There we go. Meditation. So I am going to add another text block so that I can add some promotional copy here. But I've run out of space. So what I'll do is I'll click on the column and row icon and just drag this down a bit. And then I'll add my last text block. You can also click and drag the text block to where you, or any block rather, to where you'd like it to be on the grid. And I'm going to drag this so that it is the same width as the row of photos above it. Now, I know I want to add some nice branded copy here, so I've created some placeholder text that I've typed out in another on another program. Before I paste that text in, I do have an important note. When you copy text from another program like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, some hidden formatting could be attached to the text and get carried over to your site. That can make the text unresponsive to Squarespace style tweaks, so you want to be aware of that. To avoid it, we recommend that you use the paste as plain text feature because that automatically removes all of the formatting for you. That feature is represented by the clipboard icon, which you can find in the text formatting toolbar. Once you click that, a pop-up will appear where you can paste your text. So I'm just going to quickly copy my promotional text, and I will paste it in here and click OK at the bottom right. And you see it's was pasted in without any formatting. But let's go ahead and say that I forgot to do that, and I just pasted the text as is. You see, that's not looking too great. And what can happen is when I'm changing fonts or the size of fonts, this text may not respond to it. But it's not a problem. What I can do is highlight my text here, and I can just click on the clear formatting icon in the text toolbar to get rid of all of that at the same time. Another thing I want to show you is a line break versus a paragraph break. If you want to add a bigger space between lines, just click on return on your keyboard, and that will create a paragraph break. If you don't want that much space between lines, you can click shift and then return on your keyboard, and that will create a line break. And with that, we're done with this section. So we're going to move right along and click on add section here. Now, a lot of users want to show engagement with their clients, and it's a really great way to do that on your homepage. Testimonials are an excellent way to do that. We're going to do that with a special page section that creates a collection of items arranged into what's called an auto layout. When you add content to this section, it's laid out automatically based on the settings that you choose. Auto layouts are great for content that you update on a regular basis, so content like featured product photos, projects, team members, or testimonials. Just a note, auto layout sections don't have the option to use Fluid Engine since they are already pre-made for you. That's also the case for blog pages. That said, I just clicked on the add section button and we're going to dive into the people category here. You can see which ones are auto layouts by this eye icon in the top right corner of the preview. I'm going to choose this slideshow option with the cards, but we're going to further customize it. Now, to customize it, I'm going to click on the Edit Content button in the top right corner to open up the content settings, and I'll dive into the Design tab first. This layout is nice, but it's not exactly what I want to use it for, so I'm going to click on the Layout dropdown, and I'll choose the Banner Slideshow. And while I'm here, I'm also going to set the vertical padding to medium. Jumping into the Elements tab, these toggles determine what shows up in the section itself. I only want to show the body text here since I am only adding text, so I'm going to toggle all of the other content off. And finally, within the Content tab, this is where I can add my content, my testimonials. I only have 3, so I'm going to delete the placeholder content here by clicking on the trash can icon. And then I'll just use the other 3 to paste my testimonials. There we go. And you'll see that it populates into this section as I do that. Second one. And then finally for my last one. There we go. So now that I have my section set up how I want it to be and my testimonials are all loaded, we're gonna make this section pop a little bit more. The section above also used a white background, so I wanna make this stand out, and we're gonna do that with some art. To do that, I'm going to click on the Edit Section button, and we're going to click on the Art tab here. I'm going to choose this light particle design because I like the way that looks. But similar to the options we have with photos, I can click on the settings slider icon to open up a menu where I can customize the colors, the motion speed, and the shape and size of the particles. The art is very customizable, so you can really change the colors to reflect your brand as you see fit. Now, just a note, background art only appears on browsers and devices that support WebGL, which is a tool that works with your device's graphics processor. If a browser doesn't support WebGL, the section background will remain static. And we have a guide on background section art linked in the resources window if you want to learn more. Now, at this point, I'm going to hover over the Done icon in the top right corner and click on Save just to save my changes. I like to do that as I'm designing a site because Squarespace does not have an autosave feature. So just in case my browser decides to misbehave, I'm all good. Moving right along, we're going to add our fourth page section. So I'm going to click on the Add Section button, and I'm going to add a blank section here. And just like we did before, I'll click G to show my keyboard, and I'll adjust these section settings. I'm going to add a row height of 20. I'll keep the gap spacing the same, and I'm gonna set my height to small since I want there to be some less padding here. To create the text heading, I'm going to add a text block to the middle of my block, the middle of my section rather, and again, that orange vertical line tells me that I'm centered, and I'll type in featured on. And now to edit my text, I'm sure you can guess what I'm going to do next. I'm going to adjust the format of the text itself. So again, clicking in the formatting bar, this time I'm going to go for heading 3. Then I'll highlight my heading. I'll click on the alignment icon, and then I'll center it onto the page. And now for my row of logos. I'm going to use a similar technique to the one I showed you while setting up my first row of photos. This time I'm going to add 4 image blocks here. So I'll start out by clicking and dragging an image block, and I'm going to click the plus icon to upload my file, which is this logo. And once that is uploaded, I'm going to resize it so that it has a width of 4 columns and a height of 5 rows. And just like I did before, I'm going to duplicate by clicking on the duplicate block option, and I'm going to drag these. Go. Perfect. So now I'm just going to change the photo in some of these because they are a little bit different. So I'll click on the pencil icon. Let me show you. I'll click on the pencil icon above the block and then click on replace, upload file, and I'll choose the logo here. So now I want to show you the fit and fill options and how you can apply them. You can think of a block as sort of a container that displays your content. Do you see how the photo here is inside the block? And within the block, I also see a bit of this section grid popping out. What I can do here, since I want this to be cleaner and I want my photos to appear to be all the same size, is I can set the photo to fill the entire block. Because my image blocks are all the same size, once I set these photos to fill, they're going to expand to fill the block, and they're all going to be the same size. So I'll do that for each of them. I'll click on the pencil icon, then click on design, and then click fill. And you see there's no more section grid poking through the inside of the block. Now this would be more, let's say you had a color background here and used a white photo, that would be more noticeable. But still, I want to make sure that all of these look like they are the same size. Okay, great. So now this is a uniform row. I like how I arranged the image blocks, but the layout is a little bit wonky. You see that I have 2 columns on this side and none on that side. I'm going to move these all at once. So to do that, I'll highlight below the row and then group these all together. And then I'll simply just move them over once. And there you have it. That is all I'm going to add to this section here. And I have a lot of extra space. So I'm going to click and drag the row and column icon all the way up to eliminate that. And now we're almost done. We just have our last section to add. So again, add section. We'll add a blank section. And since I'm only adding a scrolling block here, I'm not going to pay too much attention to the row count. Scrolling blocks add text that scroll horizontally across your page, kind of like a theater marquee. And it's a really cool option for adding motion to your text or making an important information stand out. I'm going to click on Edit Section. I don't want there to be any padding at the top or bottom of the section, so I'm going to toggle the Fill Screen option off. If you notice, enabling this section gives me more control over the height and the alignment of the section. If you don't want padding around the section, you can leave it to disabled. The following options only appear if fill screen is enabled. So height adds padding to your section outside of the section grid. You can choose between small, medium, or large height, or click on the dot 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 icon to set a custom height. And that, when I say outside of the grid, I'm referring to the padding above and below it. The alignment option determines where the extra padding appears. Aligning content to the top will add padding below the content. Aligning content in the center will add padding above and below the content. And aligning content to the bottom will add padding above the content. Now to add the scrolling block onto the grid, I'm going to click Add Block, and I can search for the scrolling block by typing it in here, and I'll just click that. To access the scrolling blocks are really customizable, and they're a fun way to share quick news with your customers. In my case, I want to share with them that we've opened up a new yoga studio in Brooklyn. So to do that, I'll click on the block settings by clicking on the pencil icon. And within the content field, I can determine which text I want to add here. So I'll click on Dream It, this placeholder text, and I'll type in Brooklyn Studio now open. And I'll leave this symbol here because I like what that looks like. Clicking on the Design tab, you can do quite a bit. You can adjust the intensity of the wave or eliminate it completely. I want there to be a little wave, so I'm going to bring this up to 3. And you could also adjust the style and size of the text, the direction, the speed, the spacing. And you can also toggle on the background to have a background color here. Now, the last thing I'll do with this text block, I want it the scrolling block. I want it to really stand out from the rest of my content. So I'm going to make this full bleed by clicking and dragging each side of it outside of the section grid. And it looks like some additional padding got added back to the section once I added that. So I'm going to click on Edit Section. Oh, oh, no, never mind. It did not. Okay, we're all set. So that is our homepage. I'm going to save our changes here. Now, everything we spoke about can take some practice, so I definitely recommend to test everything out on your end when you're building your site. And of course, we're here to help if anything does come up. Moving right along, now that I've created this page, I want to set it as my home page. Your home page is where visitors will land when they first access your site. You can see that this page in the Not Linked section is currently set as my home page by the little home icon that appears to the left of the page title. To change that, I'll hover over the page that I want to make my home page, and I'll click on the gear icon that appears to the right. That opens up the page settings window. One thing to note here is the page password field. If I scroll down, that is for setting a page-specific password, and you'll find that field within the page settings for each page on your site. Scrolling to the bottom, I can see the Set as Homepage button, so I'm going to click that and then click Confirm. And that's it. I've successfully set up my new homepage. And you can use your homepage for whatever you'd like or for whatever would work best for you. For Lolasana, an overview of the business just worked best. Moving on to topic number 3. I've referenced this a few times before, and now we're going to be taking a look at styling fonts and colors to further establish our visual brand. So I'm going to click edit on our homepage again to get started. While you are editing a page, you'll see this paintbrush icon in the top right corner of your page. Clicking that opens up your site styles panel where you can make style changes to colors, fonts, and animations. The options in this panel are used to make site and section-wide changes to help you create a consistent look. First, let's have a look at changing site-wide colors. So I will click colors, and that shows me my site's color palette. Your color palette is a set of default color options for your site. It consists of 3 selectable colors plus black and white. To change my color palette, I'll click on the Edit Palette button below the preview, and that brings me to the editor where you'll see an array of options to edit the palette. You can use HSL, RGB, or hex codes to look for specific colors. You can choose from pre-made palettes under presets. If you click on from image, you can upload a photo to create a palette from that. And if you click on from color, you can choose between monochrome, analogous, or complementary color schemes. You have a lot of options and possibilities here, and you can learn more about what you can convey using colors in our Choosing the Right Colors and Fonts guide located in the resources window. I do like this palette, so I'm going to keep it as it is. The main color palette determines the different color themes for page sections. Going back, we're going to see how to use section themes to edit the colors of specific elements on our site. Elements like headings, paragraph text, and background colors. As you can see from the list here, there are light, bright, and dark theme options available, and the individual elements within them are assigned a color automatically from the main palette. Take a look at these flags to the right of each section in the page preview. This tells me which color theme each section is using. The first 2 sections are using the lightest one theme. That means if I wanted to change the color of something in that section, I would edit my lightest one theme by clicking on the pencil icon that appears to the right of it. The specific color tweaks are organized by category, and I can change the color of a specific element by finding the tweak here. For example, let's say I wanted to change the color of this heading in my second page section. I would do that by going into the lightest one theme, scrolling down to the text section, and I would change the heading large on background tweak. If you remember, I used heading 2 text here and added a background color, so this would be the corresponding color theme. I can click on a color from my site's palette, or I can click on the custom tab to set a custom color, or I can use a specific color code in this field. If I do change the color and I want to revert it, I can do that by clicking on the revert icon right over there, right in the top left corner of the page preview. Now, if I change the color of the heading 2 text in the lightest one section theme, that's a section-wide change, and it changes the color of all the heading 2 text in all of the sections on my site that use the lightest one theme. The great thing about section themes is that you can give each section a different look, which is helpful for breaking up the larger pages and making content stand out. So let's make some more changes. Remember earlier when I mentioned that I wasn't sure if I liked the color of the text block, the text block background? We're going to experiment with some different colors for that now. I can do that within the lightest theme that I currently have opened here, but I don't need to manually search for the specific tweak. Instead, I can click on the element I want to change, and you see how when I hover my mouse over it, you have these blue borders? I want to change the background color, so I'm going to get it so it gets all of that background in there, and once I click, I have all of the corresponding tweaks in the Site Styles panel. So I am going to click on the background color here, and let's experiment with some different colors from my site palette. So we can try this darker salmon color, maybe this darker brown color, or I can try setting a custom color with the shade selector, or I can use a color code. Looking at this now, I do like the original color we had it, so I'm gonna go back to my site palette and click on this light pink theme, and that looks good to me. Now, closing out site styles for a moment, I do want to show you something within this section settings. If I am editing a section, I can click on the color tab to edit the entire color theme associated with that with the page section here. And that'll change all the color of all the elements within the section. So now let's take a look at fonts. Going back into the Site Styles panel, we're going to click on Fonts. At the top of the Fonts panel, we see the selected font pack. Font packs are curated type combinations that help you maintain consistency across your site, which you may have noticed is a theme throughout Site Styles. To change the selected font pack, I can click the Switch button in the lower right corner, and I have three main font categories to choose from. Sans serif have a more modern feel, serif have a more classic feel, and mixed options use both styles. Going back, I can adjust the base size of my font by using the plus and minus signs. When I do that, all the text on my site will scale relative to that base size. I can also choose a specific font for heading and paragraph text. To show you that, I'll click on Headings under Global Text Styles. And by clicking on Family at the top and then Browse All Fonts, I can scroll through all of my options, or I can search for a specific one by using the search bar at the top. Back to the previous panel, you'll see that there are other font styling options like weight and style. Now, I want my two headings to be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to decrease the size of them. So I'll go down to my heading 2 text slider, and I'll just drag this down to 2.4 REM. Just like how I found a specific color tweak, I can also click on text that I want to change to bring that tweak up. To show you that, I'll go back to my main fonts panel. I'll hover over the font I want to change, and you'll see that that font, the style set settings pop right up. Okay, I also want to touch on site-wide animations, so I'll go back to my Site Styles panel. Animations appear when I load a page or when I'm scrolling through it, and it makes my content more dynamic. To set this up, I'll click on the Animations panel, and I can choose from these options listed here. And once I click one, I can also change the speed of them. We have a guide titled Slide-Wide Animations with a video that demonstrates each one, but I am going to stick with the slide option, and I'll show you what that will look like as I'm scrolling through. Closing out Site Styles by clicking the paintbrush icon, I want to show you Device View. In the upper right corner of the page, I can click between the desktop or the mobile view to get an idea of how the edits I'm making will look across different devices. That gives me some guidance to help me edit more productively and efficiently. And I am very excited to share this with you. With Fluid Engine, mobile layouts display the same content, but you can make mobile specific edits when it comes to the size and arrangement of blocks. In other words, if something doesn't look quite right on the mobile view, you can adjust it without affecting the desktop view. I can make those edits while I'm in mobile view by clicking on the edit button in the top right corner of my screen if I wasn't already in that mode. And just a quick note, you can make mobile specific edits to block size and placement, but changes to the actual content or styles will be global, meaning it'll affect the desktop and mobile versions of your site. More information about mobile styles can be found in our guide titled Fluid Engine, Squarespace's new content editing experience. And that's everything we're going to be covering today with building and styling a site. I would definitely recommend experimenting with this panel to see just how much you can do with it. The last thing we're going to touch on today is going live. So I'll save my changes. Whenever I create a new trial site, the site is set to private by default and is only visible to me when I'm logged in. To make the site public, I'll need to upgrade my site to a paid plan. To do that, I click on the subscribe button at the bottom of my site, and this brings up the plan selection page. You'll see the features and pricing for each plan that we offer, and you can also see the monthly rates by toggling on the monthly option here. If you choose an annual plan, you'll be able to register a domain free for the first year. For reference, everything that we explore today is available on the personal plan. To access premium features like promotional pop ups, Facebook Pixel, and a free year of Google Workspace for one user, you'll want to consider the business or commerce plans. Those are also your go to plans for building an online store. The main difference between those are the transaction fees that you'll pay and access to advanced commerce features and analytics. You can upgrade your plan at any time to unlock those premium features if and when you are ready to use them. To make my site publicly available after upgrading, I'll head back to my home menu, go to settings and site availability, and here I can set it to public or I can hide it behind a site-wide password. The site-wide password is helpful if I want to share it with collaborators to get their opinion or their notes on the design of my site. And with that, you are off to the races. Those are the basics of getting started with Squarespace. To recap, today we learned how to start a trial site with Squarespace, how to build a page with fluid engine sections and blocks, and how to further style it within the Site Styles panel. Before we end today, I do want to highlight some resources that you have available to you while you're building your site. In the resources window, you can find Squarespace Help, where you'll access guides and video tutorials for everything you may need to know. In addition to our help site, we also have our wonderful customer support team available via email and live chat to answer any questions you may have while working on your site. To reach our customer support team, you can visit squarespace.com and select Contact Us from the bottom of the page. Also, we offer additional webinar sessions focused on our e commerce, scheduling, and marketing tools. You can visit learning.squarespace.com for more on those. And you can also access this webinar session URL to rewatch it at any time. And we will also resend you the link via email once we are finished today. And remember to thank you for joining us today. We have set up the discount code Get Started 10, so all of you can take 10% off your first purchase at checkout. Again, my name is Parker. Thank you all so much for joining us today and have fun building your sites.